It is now my pleasure to call on Dr. Stephens, who will deliver the commencement address. Doctor?
Reverend President Marr, Provost Downs, Dean Daly, Dean Stahura, University Professor Strangus, members of the Board of Trustees, distinguished faculty, family and friends, and, above all, members of the great graduating class of 2016. Today is a mostly wonderful day. It's a wonderful day for the moms and dads here whose hearts are bursting with pride at what you, their sons and daughters, have accomplished. It's a wonderful day for your teachers who have the double satisfaction of knowing that they did their jobs well and that they finally get to be rid of all of you. It's a wonderful day for the older students here, the ones who never gave up, not on their education, not on their family, not on their future. But that leaves the rest of you, those of you who are in your early 20s and are about to enter what's usually called the real world for the first time. What does today mean for you? Let me offer you an image. Have you ever been on one of those roller coasters that cranks you up to the top and then stops for about 5 heart-pounding seconds right at the edge of a 400-foot drop of doom? That is where you are in your lives. At that first summit that turns out to be the real beginning, wondering whether the people who built this thing really know what they're doing, hovering between exhilaration and terror. If you're not a little scared right now, it probably means you're crazy. Starting tomorrow, the plunge begins. Starting tomorrow, you go from being the seniors to whom the rest of the school looked up to the newbies on whom your older and more experienced colleagues will look down. Starting tomorrow, everything you've worked so hard to achieve these past few years, in the classroom, on the playing field, in your social life, will be of as much interest to the people around you as the regularity with which you clip your toenails. This plunge is called your 20s, and for many of you, it will be the most important decade of your life, and also the toughest. These are the years when you will make many of the really key decisions about your career, your relationships, your marriage, your dreams, what you're prepared to sacrifice for, and what you're prepared to settle for. You're going to have to find your own way, your own voice, and you're going to have to do it pretty much on your own. So here is the question you need to ask yourselves right now. When you hit 30, will you know who you are and what you want out of life? And will you be on the road to getting it? Or will you just sort of go from one thing to the next so that the life you end up making for yourself consists less of the choices you made than of the choices you did not make, the choices that somehow or other you allowed to be made for you? This is what I want to talk to you about today. 21 years ago, in 1995, I was sitting where you are now, only about 500 miles west of here, and I was doing what some of you are probably doing now. Namely, I was tuning out the graduation speaker. I didn't yet have a job lined up, but I wasn't too worried about that because what could possibly go wrong? I had good grades from a great school, enthusiastic recommendations from important professors, a girlfriend I adored, the economy was roaring along, and of course, I'm awesome. Do you want to know how arrogant young men of the sort I once was commit emotional suicide? We jump from our ego, which is around here, to our IQ, which is somewhere down there. I graduated from college, took a job as a junior editor at a prestigious magazine, and was fired within a year. Fired not because I had committed some kind of workplace felony, but because my boss seemed to conclude that I had the mental acuity of an iguana. I botched a bunch of job interviews. I enrolled in a totally useless master's program that I couldn't afford, mostly because I had to find something to do in lieu of having a job. My girlfriend and I broke up. I met another woman. We got engaged, got married, and within another year, got divorced. There were other humiliations, but frankly, they're too mortifying to mention. Let's just say that it was one foul-up, one embarrassment, one dumb decision after another. If I had to sum up my emotional state in those first years after college, I'd say that most of the time, I felt intimidated, anxious, and stupid. I was lost. Why am I telling you this? First, because it would be misleading to allow myself to be presented to you today as an example of success when what you really need to know is that I'm also an example of failure. Second, because there are some of you here who, in a few years' time, will be hitting your own rough patch. And maybe you'll take some comfort in knowing that these things happened to your commencement speaker, whose name you probably won't remember. But mainly, I'm telling you this because it is important for you to know that success in life is not a matter of winning, and then winning again, and then winning some more. Success also requires you to acquaint yourself with failure, with getting knocked off your feet, with being overwhelmed by self-doubt, with being treated like a loser. Success requires failure because failure is our greatest teacher. It tells us what not to do. It tests our fortitude. It forces us to reach deeper within ourselves. It leaves us with that much less to lose, and thus encourages us to take risks we might not otherwise take. It pushes us to strive for what is sweet by giving us a taste of what is bitter. Failure, and only failure, can imbue us with the virtues of empathy and humility and resilience. You've all heard the cliche that failure is not an option, but the truth is closer to the opposite. Failure is a precondition. It is how we understand life more fully, and it is only with a fuller understanding that we can turn ourselves around and orient ourselves towards success. So I ask you to take it as a given that some kind of significant failure is awaiting you in your future. That's life. What matters is whether you will allow that failure to beat and break and define you, or will you have the patience, the endurance, the wisdom to let it educate you? Shortly before I was fired from my first job, a mid-level editor assigned me to write a review of a scholarly book about World War II. After I left the job, I decided I would go ahead and write the review anyway. After all, what was the worst thing that could happen to me if the review was rejected? I'd already been fired. I worked on that book review for 3 days straight. If this was going to be my last chance at a writing career, I was going to give it my best shot. Then I sent it to the editor who had assigned it to me. He stripped my name from the review, showed it to my former boss, the guy who'd fired me, and asked him to guess who had written it. He guessed Donald Kagan, a historian at Yale. The review was published 3 months after I left the magazine. I look back on that as the single best moment in my entire professional career. Not because what I'd written was particularly brilliant or important. It was neither. And not because I'd clawed back an ounce of respect from the man who had done so much to damage my self-respect, sweet as that was. What mattered was that I hadn't slunk away from the assignment with the excuse that since nobody at the magazine was expecting anything from me anymore, I shouldn't expect anything from myself. It mattered that I wasn't ready to accept some other person's judgment of me, however important or authoritative that person might be, as the final verdict on my ability and prospects as a writer. What I'm describing to you is what's sometimes called a moment of truth. In real life, moments of truth do not come with the eye of the tiger playing on a loudspeaker like it's 4th and goal and the Bills are down by 6 with a minute on the clock. Real-life moments of truth are almost never cinematic or even dramatic. Moments of truth are simply those moments when you commit yourself completely to the thing you want the most, long before it's clear that you can really get it. But these big moments usually display themselves in small ways. By working all night to finish something you could just as easily leave till next week. By volunteering for what nobody else wants to do. By toughing it out when everyone is telling you to take it easy. Moments of truth happen when you do not respond to adversity by taking time off so you can eat, pray, and love. It's the moment when you are all in. You probably won't know you've had your own moment of truth until years after it has happened. What you will remember isn't that you made a decision after carefully weighing the pros and cons, or maybe just flipping a coin. What you'll remember is that you were overcome by an inner conviction, a passionate conviction that there was something you simply had to do. The only question that remains is what that something is for each of you. In the years while I was busy screwing up my life, I had one great thing going for me. I knew what I wanted to be. I'm a daydreamer by nature, and those daydreams centered me even when I most felt lost. I daydreamed about being a writer, someone whose words and ideas counted for something in the world. What is your daydream? When you're drifting off to sleep and indulging some fantasy of where you'd like to be in 10 or 20 or 30 years' time, what is it that persistently comes to your mind? Do not let these most personal dreams of yours die of neglect or dismiss them as better suited for children than for grown-ups. Those dreams are the imaginative expression of a desire you might not otherwise be able to name. They are both the core of your being, as well as the faraway light by which you make your way to safety, to recognition, to happiness, to the life you truly want to have. Cherish your dream. Keep its flame alive and its embers glowing. Build a castle around it with a moat and battlements to safeguard it from anyone who would try to extinguish it, whether it's a nasty employer or a dismissive partner, or even a loving relative who takes you aside to give you that friendly talking to about what they think the real world is supposed to be about. You have not spent all these years at this great university. Your parents haven't spent all that money. You haven't gotten into all this debt in order to be instructed in the inevitability of your ultimate disappointment. I don't think this is what this school is about, and I don't think it's what you're about either. Members of the class of 2016, I don't have a right to ask you to remember anything more about this graduation speech than I can remember about mine, which isn't saying a lot. But try to remember this: don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short when people who think they know better than you tell you that you are insignificant, uninteresting, not up to snuff. Don't sell yourself short even in an agony of self-recrimination when you know you have nobody but yourself to blame. Never forget in your lowest moment that this can also be your finest moment, because this is the moment when you begin to stand up. And remember, as you pick yourself up, that you are standing to go marching in the direction of your dream, the dream that, through it all, you never allowed to die. That's it. Now the wild part of the roller coaster ride begins. Have fun, Godspeed, and don't forget to raise your arm in triumph for all that you have achieved and all that you will. Congratulations.